Meanwhile, in this country, some First Nations groups are also seeing this as a moment, a chance to re-engage with the monarchy. The First Nations Leadership Council in BC is calling on King Charles to denounce the doctrine of discovery as a first act. And the Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, RoseAnne Archibald, is drawing attention to the Crown's role in reconciliation. Natalie Kalata is on that part of the story and joins us from the newsroom. Good morning, Natalie. A lot to talk about here. What do we know?
What we know is the relationship between the Indigenous peoples and the Crown is one that is very historic. It is a very complicated relationship and a very significant one. We know that the Indigenous peoples of Canada have really been part of every single royal visit for years, and that while we are seeing this period of grief, at the same time we are seeing calls for accountability, anger as well. And it's something that as you mentioned, the Assembly of First Nations National Chief RoseAnne Archibald spoke about recently. She tweeted this, saying, "As many mourn the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, let's remember that grief and accountability can exist in the same space simultaneously, because perhaps this is an opportunity to really reframe this relationship and address," she goes on to say, "the dichotomy, the doctrine of discovery, and that is an international principle of law whereby many Christian European monarchies used it to legitimize their colonization of lands outside of Europe." So it's something that we've heard different chiefs speak about, including Regional Chief of British Columbia, Terry Teegee. He spoke about this. Here's a little bit about what he had to say.
Opportunity for change here to, I would say, repeal the doctrine of discovery. And all those policies that were imposed on Indigenous peoples that really led to genocide of Indigenous peoples from around the world that were part of what was known as the Empire.
Now, as steps moving forward, we do know that AFN National Chief RoseAnne Archibald spoke about the Crown's relationship and said perhaps this is an opportunity as well to fulfill the Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action number 45. So that's something, John, we'll be watching for.
Yeah, in terms of 45, this is a call for a royal proclamation.
That's right. It's a royal proclamation jointly created by both the Government of Canada and Aboriginal peoples, and they're going to develop this together. And it builds upon the proclamation of 1763 and the Treaty of Niagara from 1764, reaffirming essentially a nation-to-nation relationship, as well as the relationship between Aboriginal peoples and the Crown, because we know there is a lot of hurt here. There is a huge history going right back from colonization to residential schools to now the discovery of unmarked graves in residential schools. In fact, the deep hurt and the history of colonization, its impact is something that former Governor General Michaëlle Jean spoke about with the Queen during her visit. She talked a little bit about those conversations yesterday on Rosemary Barton Live, talking about what the Queen said. Here's some of that. Have a listen.
I raised that elephant in the room. This, my ancestors were slaves, and she comes from, she's a colonial empire of slave owners and slavers, and actually it was really nice to start in this manner because she could speak about her experience, having to adjust from colonial times to decolonization.
So it will be interesting, John, and something we will be watching for as we enter the era of King Charles and how he handles all of this.
Natalie, thanks.